In 1939, the world stood on the edge of an inferno that no one imagined would swallow entire nations. Europe, still carrying the invisible scars of World War I, was holding its breath. From Paris to Warsaw, from Berlin to London, every street carried whispers of fear. Something was coming, something unstoppable, and at the center of that storm stood a single man whose ambitions were larger than countries and far more dangerous than weapons: Adolf Hitler. Germany had spent years rebuilding its pride, its army, and its ideology. Behind this revival was propaganda, discipline, and a terrifying vision of domination. While the world watched cautiously, Germany struck its first match on September 1, 1939, invading Poland with lightning speed, a strategy that later became known as Blitzkrieg. The Lightning War. Tanks roared through polished streets, aircraft darkened the skies, and Europe plunged into chaos. Within days, Britain and France declared war. Suddenly, the map of Europe began shifting like burning paper. Countries fell, borders exploded, and millions of innocent civilians found themselves caught in the middle of a storm they didn't create. But the world wasn't just fighting battles on land. It was fighting fear, propaganda, and survival. Entire families fled with nothing but the clothes they wore. Sirens screamed through nights. Cities that once glowed with life now burned under air raids. Yet even in this darkness, courage was being born. Young soldiers marched forward, knowing they might never return. Resistance groups formed in occupied nations, risking everything for freedom. And leaders around the world struggled to hold their nations together as the fire spread. World War II was not just a war of armies, it was a war of ideologies, of survival, and of humanity itself. This is the story of how the world caught fire, and how, through unimaginable suffering and sacrifice, it found the strength to rise again. As German forces swept across Poland, the rest of Europe felt the tremors. Countries that once believed diplomacy could prevent another war now realized they were watching history repeat itself, only this time the scale was far more terrifying. By early 1940, Germany turned its gaze toward Western Europe. Denmark fell within hours. Norway collapsed soon after. The efficiency of German strategy shocked the world. Their tanks sliced through borders, their aircraft pounded defenses, and their soldiers advanced with ruthless precision. It wasn't just war, it was a machine. Meanwhile, Britain watched from across the English Channel, preparing for a storm they knew was coming. Prime Minister Winston Churchill rose as the voice of defiance, telling his people that they would never surrender. Every word echoed in the hearts of millions. In May 1940, Germany attacked Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. Then France, a nation of art, culture, and pride, found itself overwhelmed. Paris fell with heartbreaking speed. The world had believed France was too strong to crumble, but in weeks, centuries of history were overshadowed by marching boots and Nazi flags. Among the chaos, a miracle unfolded at Dunkirk. Surrounded by enemy forces, thousands of Allied soldiers were trapped on the beach, facing certain death. But an extraordinary evacuation began. Warships, fishing boats, and civilian vessels crossed the channel to rescue them. It was a moment of humanity shining through darkness, proving that courage doesn't need weapons, it needs will. Across the ocean, the United States watched carefully. They were not yet part of the war, but the fire in Europe was spreading. President Franklin D. Roosevelt knew that eventually, America would have to make a choice: watch the world burn, or step into the flames to help extinguish them. The world was changing faster than anyone could breathe. Maps were redrawn almost weekly. Families were torn apart. Armies marched day and night. And behind it all, Germany believed it was unstoppable. But far to the east, another giant was stirring. A nation vast, icy, and unpredictable: Soviet Russia. Soon, Hitler would make a decision that would turn the war into a catastrophe for millions. By mid-1941, Adolf Hitler believed no force could stop him. Europe lay under his boots, from Norway's cold shores to Greece's sunlit ruins. But his ambitions stretched even farther. In his mind, the Soviet Union was the final prize, the final challenge, and the final threat. And so began Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in human history. On June 22, 1941, millions of German soldiers thundered across the Soviet border. Tanks rushed through fields, aircraft bombed cities, and soldiers marched endlessly toward Moscow. At first, the Soviet Union staggered. Entire divisions collapsed. Villages burned. Civilians ran for their lives as the front line moved faster than they could escape. But the Soviet Union had something Germany underestimated: unimaginable resilience. As German forces pushed deeper, they faced harsh winters, endless forests, and fierce Soviet resistance. The city of Leningrad became a symbol of suffering, cut off and surrounded. Its people endured starvation, freezing temperatures, and constant bombardment, yet they refused to surrender. Moscow, too, became a fortress. Civilians dug trenches. Soldiers prepared for street-to-street fighting. And as winter arrived, temperatures dropped so low that machines froze in place. German troops, unprepared for such weather, struggled to survive. Across the world, people watched as two titans clashed. The scale of destruction was beyond imagination. Entire landscapes were turned into graveyards of steel and rubble. Millions of soldiers died. Millions of civilians suffered. Meanwhile, far away in the Pacific, another storm was building, one that would drag the United States into the war and ignite a global conflict unlike anything seen before. This world on fire was about to explode into something even greater. While Europe was drowning in fire, another part of the world was preparing to explode. Far across the oceans, in the Pacific, tensions had been rising for years. Japan, an empire hungry for power and resources, had begun expanding aggressively across Asia. China was already suffering under brutal occupation, and many feared Japan's ambitions would not stop there. The United States had been watching closely. Though America had not entered the war, its support for nations resisting aggression, especially China, angered Japan. Negotiations, threats, and warnings continued for months, but behind the scenes, Japan planned something far more devastating. On the quiet Sunday morning of December 7, 1941, the world changed forever. As the sun rose over the Hawaiian island of Oahu, American sailors and soldiers went about their routine. They had no idea that hundreds of Japanese aircraft were racing across the sky toward Pearl Harbor, carrying torpedoes, bombs, and a mission that would plunge America into war. Then the sky erupted. Japanese dive bombers screamed downward, dropping explosives onto battleships anchored peacefully in the harbor. Massive fireballs tore through steel. Ships capsized, turning over like helpless giants. The USS Arizona exploded so violently that it lifted from the water before sinking with over 1,000 men still inside. Smoke blackened the sky. Panic swept across the base. Pilots ran to their aircraft only to find them already destroyed. Anti-aircraft guns roared back, but the attack came with such speed and precision that America could do little but fight back with whatever survived. Within 2 hours, the attack was over, but its impact would last forever. The United States, once determined to avoid another global conflict, was now united in anger and grief. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt delivered a speech that echoed across history, calling December 7th a date which will live in infamy. America declared war on Japan. Within days, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States. What had once been a European conflict had now transformed into a true world war, stretching across continents and oceans. For millions of Americans, life changed overnight. Young men enlisted, factories roared to life, women joined the workforce in record numbers. The nation prepared to fight on two fronts, Europe and the Pacific. The world was now fully aflame. Allies were forming, enemies were strengthening, and battles unlike anything seen before were about to unfold. The fire had spread across the entire globe. As the United States entered the war, a new wave of energy surged through the Allied nations. Factories that once produced cars, radios, and household goods now produced tanks, rifles, and bombers. America became known as the arsenal of democracy. Its industrial power was unmatched. Thousands of planes and ships rolled out every month, giving the Allies the strength they desperately needed. But the Pacific was still burning. Japan, emboldened by its success at Pearl Harbor, struck relentlessly across Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands. One by one, territories fell: Hong Kong, the Philippines, Malaya, Burma. Soldiers and civilians alike were forced into brutal marches, harsh camps, and fierce battles for survival. The Pacific theater was a war of jungles, oceans, and unimaginable cruelty. Yet even in defeat, resistance grew. The fall of the Philippines became a symbol of resilience, especially after General Douglas MacArthur's famous promise, "I shall return." Meanwhile, in Europe, the situation was rapidly evolving. The Axis powers appeared strong, but cracks were beginning to form. Britain continued its fierce stand, protecting its skies and seas despite constant pressure. The Soviet Union, though battered, was regrouping. With American supplies flowing in, hope began to flicker again. On the Eastern Front, the tide was shifting. Soviet forces unleashed powerful counterattacks, pushing German armies westward. The harsh winter of 1941 had shown that Germany was not invincible, and now, the Soviets were learning, adapting, and fighting with a determination born from the survival of their homeland. North Africa became another critical battleground. German General Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, led brilliant campaigns across the sands, his tanks striking with speed and precision. But Allied forces, strengthened by American equipment and commanders, fought back fiercely. Supplies were scarce, conditions were brutal, and every battle felt like a struggle against both the enemy and the desert itself. As the war expanded across continents, civilians paid the heaviest price. Cities were bombed, families were separated, food was rationed. Every nation involved in the war felt its impact deeply. Across Europe, millions were displaced, wandering villages, forests, and borders with only whatever they could carry. Yet through all this suffering, hope remained. People believed that one day the fire would end, and the world would breathe again. But before that day came, the war would reach even darker depths, testing humanity more than ever before. By 1942, the world had transformed into a vast battlefield. Every corner of the globe, oceans, deserts, jungles, skies echoed with the roar of engines and the cry of war. Yet among all these battlegrounds, one became the turning point that would shift the balance of power: Stalingrad. Stalingrad was not just a city, it was a symbol, a gateway to Soviet resources and a blow to Soviet morale if captured. Hitler believed its fall would collapse the Eastern Front entirely, and so began one of the bloodiest battles in human history. German forces advanced with fierce determination. Buildings collapsed under constant bombardment. Entire streets were reduced to rubble. The Volga River ran red as boats carrying reinforcements came under relentless fire. The Luftwaffe unleashed devastating airstrikes, turning Stalingrad into a wasteland of dust and broken stone. But the Soviet defenders refused to surrender. They fought not for land, but for survival, for their homes, for their families. Every building became a fortress. Every ruin became a battleground. Soldiers fought from room to room, basement to rooftop, often separated from the enemy by just a thin wall. Winter soon arrived, colder and harsher than the Germans had expected. Supplies dwindled, frostbite struck thousands, tanks froze in place. And then the Soviets launched Operation Uranus, a massive counter-offensive that encircled the German Sixth Army. What had begun as an attempt to capture a city soon turned into a desperate struggle to escape. For months, the trapped German soldiers endured starvation, disease, and bitter cold. Hitler demanded they fight to the last man, but reality could not be ignored. In February 1943, the remnants of the Sixth Army surrendered. It was Germany's first major defeat, and it shattered the myth of their unstoppable power. Across the world, the Allies celebrated. Stalingrad became a symbol of resistance, proving that even the strongest war machine could be broken by courage, endurance, and sacrifice. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the U.S. Marines were engaged in their own brutal struggle on Guadalcanal, fighting through thick jungles, swamps, and disease. Victory there signaled that Japan, like Germany, could be pushed back. Slowly, the flames of war began to shift. The Allies were not just resisting, they were gaining ground. But the road to victory would still be long, difficult, and filled with unimaginable loss. After the turning point at Stalingrad, the momentum of the war began to shift. The Axis powers, once advancing across continents with unshakable confidence, were now being pushed back step by step. But the road to victory for the Allies would be carved through immense sacrifice, strategic planning, and some of the most brutal battles the world had ever seen. Across the Mediterranean, the Allies set their sights on weakening Hitler's grip on Europe by striking the soft underbelly of the Axis. In 1943, they launched the invasion of Italy, beginning with the capture of Sicily. The operation was a massive combined assault of American, British, and Canadian forces. The beaches turned into battlefields as troops stormed ashore under heavy fire, pushing inland through rocky terrain and fortified positions. Mussolini's fascist regime, already shaken by earlier defeats, began to collapse. The Italian people were exhausted by war, bombings, and shortages. Eventually, Mussolini was arrested, and Italy surrendered to the Allies. But the struggle was far from over. German forces quickly seized control of the peninsula, transforming Italy into a fortress of hills, mountains, and deadly defensive lines. The Battle of Monte Cassino became one of the most grueling tests of the entire war. The ancient monastery, perched high on a mountain, became a symbol of German resistance. Allied troops fought upward through mud, snow, and relentless enemy fire. For months, the front barely moved. The terrain itself seemed to fight against them. Steep slopes, shattered roads, and bitter cold made every advance a nightmare. Finally, after a massive coordinated assault, the German lines broke. Rome was liberated in June 1944, giving the Allies a crucial foothold in southern Europe and proving that even the toughest defenses could be shattered with patience, resilience, and unity. Meanwhile, the air war over Europe intensified dramatically. American B-17s and British Lancasters soared through skies filled with anti-aircraft fire, launching devastating bombing raids on German factories, railways, and oil fields. Every mission carried enormous risk. Entire formations of planes vanished in minutes when enemy fighters struck from above the clouds. Yet the missions continued, weakening Germany's ability to sustain the war. As the Allies closed in from the south and east, preparations were underway for the most daring, massive, and decisive operation of the entire war, one that would determine the fate of Europe and deliver the final blow to Nazi domination. The world was preparing for a storm unlike anything it had seen before. By 1944, the Allies were ready to strike at the very heart of Nazi-occupied Europe. The plan was bold, unprecedented in scale, and incredibly dangerous. Its code name, Operation Overlord. Its goal, liberate France and open a Western front that would force Hitler into a war he could not win. For months, the Allies gathered intelligence, built equipment, and trained hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Massive convoys of ships filled British ports. Troops studied maps, practiced landings, and prepared themselves mentally for what lay ahead. The stakes had never been higher. A failure would be catastrophic. A success could change the course of the war. At dawn on June 6, 1944, the sky over the English Channel roared with aircraft. Thousands of paratroopers leaped from planes, drifting down into the darkness behind enemy lines. Their mission was to disrupt German defenses, seize key bridges, and sow chaos before the main attack began. Moments later, the horizon filled with the silhouettes of the largest invasion fleet in human history. Over 5,000 ships carried soldiers toward the beaches of Normandy, Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. The sea churned with waves, the air thick with tension. When the landing craft lowered their ramps, hell opened. German machine guns tore through the air. Mortar shells exploded across the sand. Soldiers jumped into the freezing water, fighting waves, fear, and bullets as they pushed toward the shore. On Omaha Beach, casualties were devastating. Men took shelter behind obstacles. Corpses floated in the tide, and units became scattered in the chaos. Yet they kept moving. Step by step, yard by yard, the Allies advanced. Engineers cleared mines. Infantry charged bunkers. Naval guns blasted German positions from offshore. By midday, breakthroughs began. German defenses cracked under the relentless pressure. By nightfall, the Allies had secured a vital foothold in France. The cost was enormous, but the success was undeniable. D-Day was a triumph of courage, coordination, and sacrifice, and it marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. As Allied forces poured into France over the following weeks, towns were liberated one by one. French resistance fighters rose from the shadows, sabotaging German communication lines, guiding Allied units, and helping reclaim their homeland. Hitler was now trapped between the Soviets in the east and the Allies in the west. His empire was shrinking, his armies were exhausted, and the fire he had unleashed upon the world was now burning back toward him. The final chapters of the war were approaching, and they would be fierce, desperate, and unforgettable. With the success of D-Day, the Allies began their unstoppable push across Western Europe. But liberation did not come easily. Every hill, every village, every forest was a battlefield. The German army, though weakened, fought with fierce resistance, determined to defend every inch of occupied territory. One of the fiercest battles took place in the dense woodlands of France, the Battle of the Hedgerows. The countryside was divided by thick, tall hedges that acted like natural fortresses. Tanks could barely pass. Soldiers had to crawl, climb, and fight through narrow passages where ambushes were constant and visibility was nearly zero. The fighting was slow, brutal, and exhausting. But slowly, the Allies advanced. City after city fell. Soon, the most symbolic prize of all came into view: Paris. The French resistance had been preparing for this moment for years. They sabotaged railways, attacked German patrols, and secretly gathered weapons. When Allied troops neared the city, the people of Paris rose in open rebellion. Barricades were built. Clashes erupted across the streets. The city's heart pounded with hope and danger. On August 25, 1944, Paris was liberated. Crowds flooded the streets, waving flags, cheering, crying. After 4 long years of occupation, the City of Light shined again. For the Allies, it was a moment of triumph. For the world, it was a symbol that tyranny could be defeated. But the war was far from over. As the Allies pushed toward Germany, Hitler prepared one last desperate counterattack. In the cold winter of 1944, in the snowy forests of Belgium, he launched a surprise offensive that became known as the Battle of the Bulge. German tanks smashed through thin Allied lines, creating a massive bulge on the map and threatening to split the Allied forces in two. The weather was vicious. Snow blinded aircraft. Roads turned to ice. Soldiers fought in freezing temperatures, often without proper winter gear. Entire units were surrounded. Ammunition ran low, but the resolve of the Allied troops held firm. Reinforcements arrived. American forces in Bastogne, famously refusing to surrender, became symbols of courage and defiance. Slowly, the German offensive collapsed. The failure drained Germany's remaining strength and marked the final turning point on the Western Front. Now, both the Soviets in the east and the Allies in the west were closing in. The walls around Nazi Germany were shrinking. The Third Reich was running out of time, soldiers, and hope. The end was coming, but the fire would burn fiercely before finally dying. By early 1945, Nazi Germany was collapsing under the pressure of 2 unstoppable forces. From the west, American, British, and Canadian armies pushed across the Rhine River, breaking through Germany's final defensive lines. From the east, millions of Soviet soldiers advanced relentlessly, determined to end the nightmare that had cost them so much. The German people were exhausted. Cities lay in ruins from years of bombing. Food was scarce. Electricity failed. Water systems were broken. And families huddled in basements as artillery thundered in the distance. Yet Hitler refused to accept reality. From his bunker in Berlin, he issued impossible orders to divisions that no longer existed. As the Allies crossed into Germany, they witnessed the true horror of the regime. In forests, fields, and hidden corners of the country stood the concentration camps, silent, terrifying evidence of a cruelty beyond imagination. Liberating soldiers expected prisoners. What they found instead were skeletal survivors, mass graves, and rooms filled with stolen belongings, shoes, toys, glasses, evidence of millions who never came out alive. The world would never be the same after seeing these places. Meanwhile, Soviet forces closed in on Berlin. The final battle for the German capital was fierce and devastating. Buildings collapsed under constant shelling. Streets turned into battlefields as soldiers fought house to house. Smoke choked the air. Civilians ran for safety, but nowhere was safe. Berlin had become a landscape of fire and rubble. Inside his Führerbunker, Hitler realized the end had arrived. His empire had crumbled. His armies were defeated. On April 30, 1945, he took his own life. A week later, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Victory in Europe Day VE. Day May 8, 1945 was celebrated with tears, cheers, music, and relief across the world. But although Europe's war was finally over, the fire had not yet been extinguished. Far across the Pacific, Japan still fought with unbroken resolve. Battles on islands like Iwo Jima and Okinawa had revealed the terrible cost of invading Japanese territory. Thousands died in days. Civilians jumped from cliffs. Kamikaze pilots crashed their planes into Allied ships, turning the ocean into burning wreckage. The world hoped for peace, but another storm was coming. The Allies prepared for the final and most difficult stage of the war, deciding how to end the conflict in the Pacific, where every mile forward was paid for in blood. Europe had finally been freed, but the world was still on fire, and the next chapter would determine the future of humanity itself. Even as Europe celebrated victory, the war in the Pacific raged on with terrifying intensity. Japan's forces, though losing ground, fought with a ferocity that shocked Allied commanders. Every island, every ridge, every cave became a battleground. The deeper the Allies pushed toward Japan, the more brutal the fighting became. The strategy in the Pacific was known as island hopping. Instead of capturing every island controlled by Japan, the Allies targeted key locations, places with airfields, supply routes, and strategic importance. One by one, these islands fell: Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, the Philippines, and many more. The cost was immense. Tropical diseases, dense jungles, scorching heat, and relentless enemy fire made survival a daily struggle. Then came Iwo Jima, a tiny island with enormous importance. Whoever controlled its airfields controlled the skies leading to Japan. The battle began in February 1945 with a thunderous bombardment. But when U.S. Marines stormed the beaches, they faced hidden tunnels, underground bunkers, and an enemy that refused to surrender. The black volcanic sand offered no cover. Gunfire cut through the air like metal rain. For over a month, the fighting raged. Thousands fell on both sides. Yet the image that would be remembered forever came when 6 Marines raised the American flag atop Mount Suribachi, a moment captured in one of the most iconic photographs of the war. But behind that symbol of victory lay unimaginable loss. Soon after came Okinawa, the final and bloodiest major battle in the Pacific. This island was seen as the last step before an invasion of Japan itself. The fighting was catastrophic. Artillery storms, kamikaze attacks, mass civilian deaths, and relentless combat across hills and caves. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians died. For Allied leaders, the message was clear: if one island cost so much, invading the Japanese mainland would be devastating beyond measure. Meanwhile, Japan's cities were suffering from constant air raids. Entire neighborhoods burned, factories collapsed, supply lines were destroyed. Yet Japan's military leaders refused to surrender. They believed dying for their emperor was the highest honor. The world, exhausted and grieving, watched in fear. How could this war be ended without destroying an entire nation? As Allied leaders met to discuss the final step, a new and terrifying weapon entered the equation, a weapon that would not just change the war, but change the future of the entire world: the atomic bomb. The Pacific was reaching its breaking point, and soon, the fire would reach its most explosive moment. 1943, Kasal Europe ki political map, parek bait tad fod ka waktha. Fascist powers jo, kuch sal, pehol, tak apni a ipi, ko, unstoppable sam ajdi, the a b. Dear toot rahi the. Mussolini ki Italy, jo kabi Hitler ka sabs porana or, sabs, wafadar, sathi the. Ab apni hi bo, ki nich dabna laji. War ki pehol, half me Italian army, me Africa, Greece, or Mediterranean me, kai morco, par shi cost ke, the. Logan ka barosa, tut, chuka, the, or, jab awam, ka hausla gur j. To sultanate ka taxiata der tak nahi tikta. Italy ki sharon, me allied bombings, ni har, tariff tabahi, Fela di the. Rome or Milan J's share. Jo kabi fascist rally or military parades, ka markaz hua kartha. Ab tut, ti hua marathon, ka jungle ban gaitha. Omlog, jo Mussolini ki speeches parek wakt, mi jum uftha. Abs zimadar, Thera Rehi, the book, B. Rosgari, or Badti Hu bombings, ki waja se har, gar, mi gusa yubal raha da. Allied forces ki North Africa mi, jeet, niek or, bada, rasta, kol, dia. Italy par direct invasion. July 1943 mi jab allies Sicily par uter. Italian army tut gay morale zero. Leadership confused, or soldiers thake hu. Hitler ni Italy, ko bashain ki koshish ki. Likun wo b, samaj chuka, da ki Mussolini ka wakt ka tom, ho raha hai. Fur ya wo, pal jo, Europe ki politics, ka ruk, badaln wala da. Mussolini ki apni high government, ni us power se hata dia. Fascist council ni decide kia ki Italy, ko bashain, ki lai. Mussolini ka jana zeruri hai. Ek wakt ka shaktashali dictator. Just agi log gawahi nahi di sakti. The Ajarest Hokar ek chot, say mountain hotel mi band car dia gaya. Italy ni Germany ko signal dia. Hum ab is jang ka hissa nahi rena chait. Leaken Hitler, alini ko yun hai gert hunahi dek sakta da. Usni ek daring commando mission launch kia joaj. B. History mi sabs, bold rescue missions, mi say ek mana jata hai. German paratroopers ni helicopter, say uter car. Mussolini ko usk mountain. Prison say, zinda nakala or ek puppet. State bana dia German control. Wali Republic of Sal. Leaken sach, yida ki Mussolini ab surf ek symbol, da. Power usk hof mi na he. Hitler ki hof mi the. Egel kuch mahino mi ili ek battlefield bangaya. Warth me Germans ka control. South me allies ki advance. Or beach me fossi hui Italy ki awam. Fascism. Ka shadow ab dear katam ho raha a leakin fight abihai dor tak baki the. Eastern Front. Wo jaga Jahan World War to ka sabs kuni or sabs decisive chapter lika gaya 1943-44 ki beach ki in mahino mi Europe ka sabs bada battlefield ek eyes inferno mi badal gaya Jahan har din lakan zindajian badal rahi the Germany Jo 1941 mi confident or aggressive Terreich say Soviet Union partuti the AB Cud ek survival mode mi aa ichuki the Stalingrad ki har ni German army ki kamar tad di the or AB Red Army commission bilkul clear the har ek inch wapas lena Soviet soldiers ki lai yi jeng surfboarders ki nahi the yi unkgar unk logan unki zamin ki jeng the har soldier ki dilmi ek hai og jal rahi the jo kabi hamar sharon ko jala kar gaya use ab hum kud og mi jala kar hai chain lenj Moscow Stalingrad Leningrad In Sab Jagahan ki Tabahian, Unk, Jasby, Ko or Bodka Rahi Thi. 1943 Ka Kursk Ka battle is his turning point, Ka symbol, the. Yeah. History Ka Sabs Bada tank battle, the thousands of tanks. Gunfire Ka storm, duel, Dwan. Or Zamin Ka Har, inch camp, youth of the. German Tiger tanks or Soviet. T-34 Eski Tacker ni battlefield. Koek steel graveyard, Bana Dia. Germans ni Socha the ki unki armor technology unhiek or breakthrough di degi. Leaken Soviets ni uns biziata zdki trenches, mines, anti-tank guns. Har cheese unhi rakna ki lai hai tayar ki ge thi. German defeat at Kursk ni Hitler ki last offensive plan ko b tordia. AB initiative pora Soviet Union ki hathmi the. 1944 mi Red Army ek unstoppable tide ki j's west ki tariff ben laji. Jo share kabi Germany ki control me. The ek kark azad hot ge kiu. Minsk, Smolensk, or Furpora, Belarus. Operation Bagration Nam Ka Soviet. Assault to it na powerful the Ki German Army Group. Center almost wipeout Hogaya. Months Ki fighting Surf Kutch, Hafto, Mikatam, Hogaye. German soldiers Ki Lai frontline. Abek nightmare Ben Chuki Thi supply lines. Tut Chuk the. Fuel cam the. Or winter fur, say unk kilif kata the. Har retreat ek nei tragedy the. Villages jail, Q, bridges, tut, chuk. Or soldiers ki anken me hopelessness soft dicti the. Hitler ki stubborn commands no retreat, ni situation or be carib car d. Jab Red Army Poland or Baltic states ki tariff body. Europe ka political future b lika yaraha the. Har liberated city ki saf ek naya chapter kal raha the or ek nei tension b. War ka and Nasdaq the unpost-war world ki shakel abi hai say ben rahi the. Eastern Front ki is Ogmi Germany ki defeat ab surf wakt ka sol ben chuki the. 1944 Tak World War II ek Eispoint Parpahench Chuki the Jahan. Germany Kia's pause Ka Gera Dinba Dintang Hota Yaraha the. West say Allies, East say Soviets, or South say Italy Ka Front Tino Tariff say Axis powers, Ko Dabov, Messus, Horaha the. Hitler Ka Reich. Jo Kabi Europe Par Raj Karn Ka Sapna Dek Raha the. AB Kalapski Kanari Par the. June 1944 Yi Woma Hina the Jizmi History Ka Sabs Bada. Amphibious Invasion Sharu Hua. D-Day. Normandy Ki Sahil Par Suba Jab Allied ships Ka Sagar Decay Dia. To German defenders Ko Samaj Ayak Ki Ab Asli Hamla Shuru Hogaya Hai. Thousands of soldiers. Rough waves. Ko Tati Hu Beach Par Uter Rehi the Omaha. Utah Gold. Juno. Sorgi Namaj B, Courage, Ka Nishan Hain. Machine guns ki non-stop fire, exploding mines. Or Barf JC Hawa ki Bajud Allied troops, Niek Ek Beach Ko secure Kia. D-Day ni Western Front Ka Darvaza Kol Dia. America, Britain, Canada, or Unk Sathi armies France ki and Argussen Lage. German forces desperately resist Kar Rahi Thi. Leaken Unki supply lines already stretched thin Thi. Air superiority, Pori Terra. Allies ki Huth Mi Thi. German tanks ya convoys move B. Nahi Kar Sakti the. Bina is der ki Uper say bombers. Unhi Yuda Denj. Paris ki Azadi ni Europe mi ek naya hope jagaya. Share jo kabi Nazi boots ki nich dab giyab the. Ajfer say kata ho gaya. Jab free French forces champs lies es par march kar rahi thi. Logan ki anken mi ansu the ye surf ek military victory nahi thi. Ye dignity ki wapas mili hu ejit thi. Isai wat. Italy me German troops still resistance die Reiche the Allies Rome. Tak Pahenschuk Leaken North Italy fighting tough the German defensive lines Gustav Line, Gothic Line Mountains, or rivers key natural protection. Cayus Kark Banayi Gaya the Leaken Allied forces slow, steady pressure, Dal Rahi the Italy Ka front Germany key resources Ko or Zyada drain Kar Raha the Eastern Front say bad news already Aa Rahi the Soviet Union Germany key tariff lightning speed say bad Raha the Yani West or East Dono tariff say pressure build ho Raha the Hitler key generals AB clearly dek Rehi the key war unwinnable Ho Chuki Hi Leaken Hitler reality except Karn say Inkar Kar Raha the Uski orders irrational Hot Ya Rehi the no retreat key commands German army ko or destruction key tariff Dakal Rehi the Har Harapan ko Jad Kar Reich ko Zinda Rakni ki Koshish ho Rahi the Par Sabko Pata the Wakt Katam ho Raha the Europe ka landscape Badal Raha the Allied troops ek Kadam Bada Kar Berlin ki tariff Nazdik Aa Rehi the 1945 Ki Sherwat Tak Dunia Ko Ek Bat Bilkal Saf Dik Rahi the Hitler Ka Reich Ab Gern Hai Walla Hai Germany Ki Andar Har Tariff Chaos the bomb cities collapsing factories or thacked Hugh soldiers Jo Nation Kabi Europe Par Rajkarn Ka Sapna Dek Rahi the Ab Apni Hai Zakman Ki Nich Dabna Laji Allied or Soviet forces Dono Tariff say Germany Ki Dil Berlin Ki Tariff Bad Rehi the Western Front say American or British forces Unstoppable Te Rhine River cross Karna X symbolic barrier the or Jab Allies Ni is Badhi Nadi Ko Par Kia To Germany Ki citizens Ko Bi Yakin Ho Gayaki Endgame Shuru Ho Chuka Hai Allied tanks German countryside me its roll car Rehi the J steel ki leher Luftwaffe Jo Kabi Europe ki Sabs strong air force the Ab Kachchi Ho Chuki the German skies me allied bombers Ka Hai Raj the cities JC Cologne Hamburg or Dresden Sab ruins me Badal Chuk the smoke dust or burnt stone. Yes Sab Germany ki har share ka hissa ben chuka the awam shelter me chupi the or soldiers front lines par apni last sansan say resistance ki koshish kar rehi the leaken reality ye the ki Germany ki pause ab na manpower bacha na fuel ammo war machine thak chuki the Eastern Front say Red Army ki advance lightning speed say ho rahi the Soviet soldiers har ek share ko capture Kartu Berlin ki gates tak pahanch gay unk dilmi Stalingrad Leningrad or millions of murdered civilians ki yadain jal rahi the unki determination itni intense the ki har step ek revenge. The German soldiers, Jo Kabi, arrogant or confident te, ab fear me ji rehi te. April 1945 Berlin Ka siege shuru hua. Sharek battlefield ban gaya. Streets, subways, buildings har jaga fighting chow rahi the. Hitler ni Reichstag, chancellery or bunkers ko apna last fortress banadia. He still believed. Ki koi miracle hoga, ki allies ki beach conflict hoga, ki koi nuclear breakthrough hoga, but kuch bi nahi hua. Reality iron bars, ki terra, est aas posband hoti, yarahi, the. Berlin ki har, konmi youth soldiers, old men, or wounded troops defend Kar Rehi the. Ye desperation ka symbol, the Reich apni last sans, mesus, Kar Raha the. Soviet flags, ek building par chadni lajan. Jab Red Army Reichstag, tak pahunchi. to victory surf time, ka sol regaya. Hitler ni apni bunker mi kud, ko dunia, say alag kar lia. Jab usni, samja, ki Berlin gur, chuka, high, or loyal officers be defeat. Except kar chuk hain. Usni apni last choice. Choose. Ki defeat say pehol death. Germany ka fate seal ho chuka da. World War II ka sabs, dramatic climax, abek final explosion, ki terra dikni wala da.